The solar eclipse on April 8th, 2024 is upon us. This once in a lifetime event will draw photographers from everywhere directly into the path of totality. Documenting this event with photos is only natural for anyone into photography. If you're like me and actually live directly in the path of totality, you most definitely want photos of the solar eclipse with your hometown as the foreground to such an amazing event. But if you've only photographed the sun during sunrise or sunset, there's much more you need to know before you point your camera at the blazing midday sun. Many of these tips you may already know, but I know for a fact that I have a few things in my list that I have not seen in other photographers' lists. So let's get started. Disclaimer: everything in this video has been researched thoroughly by me, especially everything regarding safety. However, by pointing your camera at the sun, there is still a risk something could go wrong. You are solely responsible for the safety of your gear as well as yourself. User error is the most common thing that can go wrong, but there are other issues that can also arise. First, purchasing cheap solar filters and solar glasses from non-reputable sources could cause damage to your camera, or worse yet, your eyes. It's much better to pay a little bit more from a trustworthy source and than to save a few dollars. Not inspecting your gear and filters for damage before pointing them at the midday sun is also an issue. All it takes is a small little pinhole in your solar glasses or filter, and it can not only destroy your camera, it can do serious damage to your eyes. Not learning how to use your gear properly could also cause damage or injury. Also, not heeding the warnings of me and others to take safety precautions before photographing the solar eclipse. Remember, safety is always, 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 always the first thing to check on your list before doing something like this. So in that case, I will start with safety first in this video. Please don't skip this part. First off, the obvious. Wear approved safety goggles that were made to protect your eyes when looking at the sun. Never look at the sun without proper protection for your eyes. Regular sunglasses will not work for this. Recently, a woman looked at the sun for only 20 seconds and she burned her retina. Okay. This is an unrepairable injury. She is blind in that area of the burn. That's all she sees is black. Protect your eyes. Use proper solar filters for your camera lenses. Do not stack regular ND filters on your camera. Solar filters are available in glass and mylar types. Glass solar filters screw onto your lens like any other filter. The pros to glass filters are that they are durable and they are on your lens securely. The negatives are that they take longer to remove during totality and put back on after totality, which means possibly losing some photography time. Also, they can be much more expensive than the mylar solar film filters. Solar filters made from mylar film are cheaper than glass filters if you buy them in a sheet. You can buy them pre-made into cardboard or clip-on enclosures, but they tend to be more expensive. Also, mylar film is very fragile, and if you tear or puncture the filter, it is completely ruined. Okay, so don't try to use it if you damaged your mylar film. Some mylar film can turn the sun orange in your photos. In reality, the sun is actually white. However, the color can be removed in post-processing. Thousand Oaks is the one that comes to mind that will turn your sun an orange color. Okay, it looks cool, but anyway. DSLR users, do not use the optical viewer on your camera to look at the sun. You can damage your eyes as bad or worse than looking at the sun directly. The lens of your camera magnifies the sun's rays like a magnifying glass. Some of you may are old enough to remember burning paper on those hot summer days with a magnifying glass in the sun. Okay, the paper starts on fire. Use your camera's LED screen to view the sun, or better yet, use a field monitor attached to your camera. If you have a mirrorless camera, you can use the viewfinder. You will have a lot of downtime while waiting for the solar eclipse to happen. Even with a proper solar filter on your camera, you may want to cover your lens with a lens cap, a cloth, or some other type of cover. I plan on using a matte box with a flip cover on it so I can raise and lower it as needed. Your lens choice will be determined by the types of photos you plan on taking of the solar eclipse. If all you want is a zoomed in photo of the sun with its corona and then a telephoto lens is all you need. You don't need a 1,000 millimeter lens to photograph a solar eclipse. A 400 to 500 millimeter lens is ideal because you will leave a lot of room for the sun's corona, because it is actually a lot bigger than you think it is. If you zoom in too much, you'll crop out the corona in the shot. If you rather take photos of the location you're at and then composite the solar eclipse over that photo in Photoshop, then a shorter focal length is all you need. For myself, I plan on having two camera setup, one for a zoomed in shot and another to document my location with the sun stages superimposed over it to show the path the sun took as it was being eclipsed by the moon. Now, while you probably could take some decent photos of the solar eclipse by hand holding your camera, the best way is to use a tripod and a remote shutter. During totality, you will most likely be bracketing your photos so you can combine them during post-processing. More on bracketing in the settings segment. Bracketing is best done with your camera on a tripod. Also, you will have some downtime while waiting for the solar eclipse. Do you really want to be holding your camera and a long telephoto lens for 3 hours plus? Again, I plan on having both of my cameras on a tripod, and my cameras won't only be sitting. I'll also have a chair to sit in and a small table. I'm going to be comfortable. If you're going to photograph the solar eclipse, do it with style. A wired or wireless shutter remote is also needed so as not to shake the camera while pressing the shutter button. You could also use your camera's app on your phone as well. Plus, then you could take the photos from the comfort of your chair. Myself, I'll be using a wired shutter remote and not a wireless one. Wireless remotes are great, but for a once in a lifetime event, I feel a wired remote is more reliable. Okay. No batteries to die out, no frequencies to stop your remote from working. And if you're using your phone app, you got the Bluetooth connection going back and forth, and you can have problems with that. Again, I strongly suggest a wired remote if you're going to use a remote. You'll need to power your camera and your monitor for several hours during the solar eclipse. You could just bring a few extra batteries for your camera and a few more for your monitor and be done with it. But then you got to change them back and forth, okay, if they do die. But if you're using multiple cameras and a monitor rig like I'll be, then you'll need a lot of juice. What I'm going to do is I have a V-mount battery clamped to my tripod and then a D-tap extension, so that way I'll have enough ports for all my devices. Dummy batteries are also a great choice and can be plugged directly into the V-mount battery and then into your camera or your monitor. Since I always tend to overplan everything, I'm also going to bring a portable power source just in case I need it. You know, you can skip the V mount battery and plug everything directly into your portable power device via USB or even with plugs. But the V mount batteries are smaller and they fit in my camera bag. The biggest question photographers have about photographing the solar eclipse is how to set up their cameras. However, keep in mind that no one can give you the exact settings for your camera. Even if someone is using the same camera as you, they're not in the same area as you. The conditions won't be the same. So you're going to have to tweak them. These settings will get you started, but again, you will have to tweak them depending on lighting conditions, your camera, your lens choice, etc. Also, you will have different settings for partial solar eclipses and other settings for totality. The settings I provide here are split between filter on and filter off. You will have your solar filter on your camera for most of the duration of the eclipse. The only, and I mean only time that you will remove your solar filter is just after the diamond ring appears on the beginning of the totality, and then just as the diamond ring reappears at the end of totality. That means if you are in the center of the path of totality, like I'll be, you'll have approximately 3 minutes and 20 seconds with your filter off your camera. It's really not a lot of time. The farther you are from the center of the path of totality, the less time you will have. Please check all the maps and your local listings, your newscasts for how long you are going to have in your area. Okay, camera settings during a partial eclipse phases, which is contact 1 and contact 4. With the solar filter on, cover your lens in between frames. Check your histogram to be sure your settings are correct. So again, these settings are just going to get you started. You're probably going to have, if you watch 10 different videos, you're probably going to get 10 different answers to what settings to use. Okay. This is why you really need to get out and practice. You cannot practice the totality part of it, but you can at least get an idea how your filter is going to work. So for these settings right here, this is for, let me see, your glass filter. You're using your glass filter. All right. And I'm also going to give you the shutter speeds for glass filter. And then if you use a Mylar, specifically the Thousand Oaks solar Mylar film. Okay. Again, other Mylar films may be slightly different. So, but this should get you started. For glass filters, set your aperture for f8. Okay. That's usually the sweet spot for most cameras. Now, if you know your camera is better at, say, f9, f10, well, then do that. But you're going to have to adjust your ISO or your shutter speed. I suggest you leave your ISO at like 100, which is a good spot for noise when it comes to having less noise. And then just adjust your shutter speed. That way you're only messing with one dial. For the glass filter, again, and I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, I want to make sure I'm clear. For the glass filter, a shutter speed between 1/500th and 1/800th should get you in the ballpark. Okay. And again, that's with a glass filter, usually a 16.5 stop filter. Okay. So it's pretty dark. One of those shutter speeds will get you started. Okay. And again, you might have to move it a little bit. So, again, these are not etched in stone. If you're using the Thousand Oaks solar film, 1/30th to 1/60th of a second should work for you in that regard. And again, you're going to have to tweak it. The solar film is a little bit, it's denser. Okay, it's darker. So you're going to have to adjust your shutter speed, quite a bit. And again, you're going to be fine. People are worried about motion while the eclipse is happening. I mean, from first contact to totality, you still have about an hour, okay, give or take, depending on your location. It's second contact to third contact. That's where it's going to move. It's going to appear to move a little faster. Also, if you're using a zoom lens, a telephoto lens, it's going to look like it's moving a little faster. But again, 1/30th to 1/60th should be pretty much in the ballpark for the Thousand Oaks solar film. During totality, no filter on the camera. You're going to bracket 7 to 9 frames set one stop apart. And again, check your histogram to be sure. So take a quick test shot and then adjust quickly, especially during totality. Adjust quickly. With bracketing, there's 2 ways you can do it. If you want the camera to handle it, it'll do perfectly fine. You can do all your settings in the camera. But keep in mind that during totality, you have to take your filter off your camera. So if you're using a screw-on filter, like a glass filter, that's going to take a little bit of time. Then you got to go into your camera settings, and then you got to change the settings. Again, that's going to take a little bit. If you put all these settings in your favorite menu, because I know with Canon, they have like a favorite menu. I mean, you should be able to go pretty fast. But, again, practice it. Okay, you got time still to practice. But the other way you can do it is just do it manually. So what you can do is start with the shutter at 1/500th of a second. Okay. And then go slow or go faster, like a stop. Okay. So increase your shutter by a stop, and increase it by another stop, then increase it by another stop, and then keep taking the shots like that. Then go back to where your picture is perfectly exposed, then drop it down. Boom, boom, boom. And you're going to go one stop at a time. Okay. For some of you, this might be the faster way to go. So you could do it either way. And plus, like I know my camera, I have the Canon R5. You can only set it for a max of 7 bracket shots. Some cameras you can go up to 9. Okay. So at least if you do it manually and you think you can handle it, you can go 9, 10, whatever. You shouldn't need more than 9 brackets as long as you're going to stop apart. Because if you think about it, with a 7 bracket shot, you got 1 shot perfectly exposed, and then you got 3 that are over that exposure, and then you're going to have 3 under that exposure. That's going to give you plenty of room. Now, some photographers, they like to merge them, those shots, to see what they get, and then they can tweak it that way. Or I was just watching a video yesterday. This guy actually just picked one of his brackets and just edited that one photo. Again, it's your choice. But the idea with bracketing is you have a choice. Okay. Whereas if you just stick with the settings I give you and keep going, who knows? I mean, maybe when you get out of the sun and you're checking your photos on your computer, you may not like them. So at least when you bracket, it's like a little safety mechanism. So either way, whether you do it manual or let your camera do it, bracket your photos. Now for settings, I suggest you leave your aperture at f8. Again, that's the sweet spot. ISO, check it out at 100. Leave it there. Okay, leave it there. But you can always increase it a little bit. Because like I said earlier, during totality, the eclipse is moving, it's going to appear a little faster, especially if you're zoomed in 500-600 millimeters. So if you go below 1/30th of a second, you might, you could possibly miss it. So, but you'll be bracketing too, so you should be able to get them. I suggest don't go below 1/30th of a second. You could try it out, see how it goes. But, again, I keep repeating myself, during totality, you got to be on your toes. Okay. You got a lot going on. If you are photographing during second contact, which will be, it's a diamond ring. okay? That's where you wanna use 1/30th, okay, as your perfect exposure. And then you're gonna bracket on either side of that. But then when you get to the beads, I believe they're called Bailey's beads, you're going to want to increase a little bit, okay? And maybe 1/500th a bracket, okay? And then when you get to the corona, okay, which is a full eclipse, go back to 1/30th of a bracket or of a second. And again, all of these are bracketing. So again, even if these settings are off a little bit, you're going to get some good shots. Either way, you got that safety net of the bracket. Okay. So again, these are just going to get you started. All right. I will include a link to the PhotoPills website where I did some of my research for this video. They not only have settings for photographing the eclipse in each stage, but they also have some photo ideas and gear suggestions to help you with photographing the solar eclipse. Again, the link is in the description below. As I mentioned earlier, these settings are just a guide to get you started. The key is to get out and practice before April 8th so you can tweak the settings for your gear. Remember, you cannot practice for totality itself ahead of time. Just keep all these settings written down, whether it's on your phone or in a little field notes notebook. So on solar eclipse day, you can access them easily. All right. The last tip I'm going to give you is make sure you stop and enjoy the moment. You don't want to remember this once in a lifetime event by you looking through a camera lens. Stop and look up at totality with your bare eyes. Remember, you can take your glasses off during totality just to experience it yourself. Feel how the temperature changes cooler as the sun is eclipsed by the moon. Notice the faces of the people around you and their reactions. Maybe get some shots of that too. And that definitely would be a great documentation of the day. Stop being a photographer for a few seconds and become a viewer of this extraordinary natural event that we will all be sharing together. Remember, there won't be another total eclipse. I yeah, I think it's like 19 or in 2055. I think it's the next one. So I can't remember. I'll put it in the description. So anyway, have fun, enjoy the moment, get some great photos. Good luck, everybody.